More than 100 years ago, Minnesota's first hospital was opened in St. Paul by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. Now, in the 90s, when healthcare costs are spiraling upward, the good sisters are focusing on better healthcare for the working poor. Over the next 3 years, 20 neighborhood primary healthcare clinics will be opened throughout Minneapolis and St. Paul. The first 2 such clinics have already been up and running in Minneapolis, one at the Northside Child Development Center at 1011 14th Avenue North, and the second at a Center for Women and Children at 2104 Stevens Avenue South. Funds for these clinics come from Carondelet Life Care Ministries' recent sale of its final interest in St. Mary's Riverside Hospital to Fairview. With the opening of these clinics, the Sisters of St. Joseph return to their roots, bringing health care to those in need. Our special interview guest on our Sunday morning show today is Sister Mary Madonna Ashton, President and Chief Executive Officer of Carondelet Life Care and former Commissioner of Health for the state of Minnesota. Sister Mary Madonna, it's a pleasure to welcome you to our Channel 4 studios.
I'm delighted to be here.
You know, this organization that you represent, the Sisters of St. Joseph, has a rich history going back over 100 years as it applies to this part of the country. Tell us a little bit about the organization.
We came to the United States from France and settled in a Spanish community adjacent to St. Louis, Missouri. And that's why we pronounce it Carondelet and not Carondelet, although that's a common mistake that people make.
And your mission, when the first sisters came over 100 years ago to our Twin Cities area, was not a medical mission at the beginning, was it?
No, it was an educational mission. Although when we came to St. Louis, we came to establish a school for the deaf, so that was kind of medical. When we came to St. Paul, we came at the invitation of Bishop Cretin in 1851 with the intention of establishing a school, which eventually did get established. But when our 4 sisters arrived here, they discovered that there was a cholera epidemic that was blossoming and that the need was much more important for them to care for the sick. And so overnight they became nurses. Nurses training was easy in those days.
Well, bring us up to date now. You've been involved with the medical situation for how many years now?
I've been in some aspect of medical care since, I better not tell you the number of years.
Well,
I started out in the 50s as a medical social worker at St. Joseph's Hospital. And then I came over to St. Mary's after I finished getting my degree in hospital administration to become the first assistant administrator and then administrator of St. Mary's. And I was at St. Mary's in Minneapolis until 1982, at which time I took a sabbatical, and during that sabbatical was asked to become the Commissioner of Health by Governor-elect then, Perpich, and I held that position for the 8 years that he was our governor.
I'm sure that experience, that last experience especially, must have prepared you for the opening of these health clinics for the poor that we want to talk about today. You saw the need for something like that, I imagine, some time ago.
Yes, when I was the Commissioner of Health, I had a whole new arena open to me in terms of public health needs. I was very familiar with the hospital scene here in Minnesota, and particularly in the metropolitan area. But when I became the Commissioner of Health, I saw a lot of needs that were basically neighborhood needs. Children not being immunized, children not having respiratory conditions or ear infections taken care of, and developing chronic disease as a result of that. And so when it became possible for us to do an evaluation of what we were doing in our healthcare ministry as sisters, we threw into the bucket, so to speak, the possibility of doing something in neighborhoods and bringing our healthcare ministry out of the hospital into the community.
And you refer to these health clinics for the poor as clinics without walls. The significance of that?
The significance of that is that we do not intend to build clinics. We do not intend to put brick and steel and mortar and things like that into a building. We want to use our resources to care for people, and so we are looking for locations where we can be a part of another facility, a community center or an existing program, and utilize space that's available in those facilities. This is important for us too because needs change, and if a neighborhood no longer needs us, or if another neighborhood needs us worse or needs us also, we'll be able to expand much more easily than if we're tied down with the ownership of a building.
As we speak, Sister Mary Madonna, you've already opened and established 2 of these health clinics for the poor. Tell us where they're located.
We opened our first clinic on January 30th at the North Side Child Development Center at 14th and DuPont in Minneapolis, and that's a child care development center sponsored by Catholic Charities. So it was appropriate for us to move in there and to expand their services to include health care for the working poor and for people who could not afford care because they were uninsured or for other reasons. We particularly directed our attention there, of course, to the children that were already in the center. Our second clinic opened in March 10th to be exact, at a women and children's center located on Stevens Avenue near Franklin in Minneapolis.
And I understand that 2 more such clinics are in the cards for the remainder of the year 1992.
Yes, in fact, I hope they open long before the end of the year. We're going to be opening one in St. Paul and another one in Minneapolis, I think. We have not determined the sites. We're talking to a lot of people, a lot of groups, and many of them that we probably will be talking to will have one there eventually, but where the first site in St. Paul will be, we have yet to determine, as well as another site in Minneapolis.
This whole healthcare issue has come to the fore in recent years. It appears to be an important point of discussion in the presidential campaign. The federal government, the Congress is grappling with some kind of a universal health care plan. Our state legislature here in Minnesota, as we speak, is contemplating a health care plan. Let's talk about the Minnesota plan. We haven't had a chance to examine it, and by the time our interview reaches the air, who knows where that will be. But from what you know at this point, how would the proposed plan by the state legislature work in connection with your health clinics for the poor?
We would hope that it will provide some resources for people to receive medical care more efficiently and without the worry that's attached to whether or not they should go to a doctor, whether or not they should come to our clinic. Our clinics are basically for people who can't afford care. We know that the programs that are being proposed by the state are not going to cover everything completely. So we know there will still be a need for our neighborhood clinics. To what extent we'll be able to use some of the resources that may be available over the years remains to be seen. As you've seen in the proposals, most of these programs will not go into effect until January of '93, and then some in January of '94, and so there's an extension of time here, even as we speak, that will not mean we immediately have access to that, and then we're going to have to learn a lot more about it to find out how we can access it.
Of course, there's been a traditional relationship between the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet and Health East. Can you explain what that linkage is and how that's going to work into this plan?
Health East is the parent organization for 5 hospitals in St. Paul, as well as a nursing home and a few other health programs. St. Joseph's Hospital, which was the first hospital established in St. Paul back there in 1851, is part of the Health East organization. And we are tapping in right now to Health East through St. Joseph's primarily to get our medical supplies and some of the medical education kinds of activities that we hope to bring to the people in the neighborhoods. And so that that whole linkage will become increasingly important as we develop clinics in St. Paul.
I understand that one of your goals here with the establishment of health care clinics for the poor is preventive medicine.
Right.
Can you explain why that is so important?
I personally think that we are going to, in the long run, save more money, more medical care costs by concentrating on keeping people well and teaching them to appreciate their good health than it is to worry about trying to reduce the costs of hospital care, which are so expensive primarily because of the technology and the highly trained people that are required. But if we can get people at an early age to realize the importance of eating properly, of participating in sports and getting a certain amount of exercise, of not smoking and drinking responsibly, and to have an appreciation of their health so that if they do see something or feel something that's not just right, that they'll seek medical care early. We can prevent a lot of chronic disease, a lot of deaths, a lot of mortality, if we could just get people to see the importance of that. And so a lot of our clinic emphasis is going to be on preventive care, immunizations for children, encouraging good prenatal care, having classes in how you buy food at low cost that's nutritious for your children, that kind of thing.
What you're talking about, Sister Mary Madonna, makes so much sense. And once again, the church has jumped into the fray, not waiting for government to do it, because sometimes the mills grind very slowly at both the federal and the state level. But here's a church-backed organization that's jumping into the fray right now when health care is so expensive. There are so many poor children, poor families that need to avail themselves of this care. And that brings us to the way that you support these programs. You have an annual gala, and there's one coming up to which we want to invite a lot of you folks watching our program here on CCO today, so pay attention. It sounds like a marvelous evening. Lou Rawls, who is one of my favorite performers, great singer, is going to be the star of that show.
Right.
And another person that we are proud of is Don Shelby, one of our news anchors here at Channel 4, is going to be the MC of that event. Tell us where that takes place and when it's going to be and who's invited.
It's a very, very important event for our clinics. It's the major support that we will be receiving. It will take place on May 2nd at the Marriott City Center Hotel.
And that's in downtown Minneapolis.
In downtown Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And tickets can be obtained by calling the Crondelet Healthcare Foundation. The foundation is the arm of our Crondelet Life Care Ministries, which is the major promoter of the clinics. Mm-hmm. And that arm does a great deal of good for us in terms of raising money for our clinics and any other of our health ministries that we need and want to do in the future. The number for that healthcare foundation is 337-4349.
Okay, maybe folks out there are scrambling to get a pencil and a piece of paper. We're going to repeat that phone number, and that will put them in touch with...
That will put them in touch with the people at the Healthcare Foundation who are responsible for getting the tickets out, the invitations out, and are more than happy to invite anybody and everybody who might like to participate in supporting our clinics.
And of course, emphasizing that tickets may be purchased not only by individuals, by families, but also by corporate organizations, right. Businesses, and maybe even church congregations.
Anybody's welcome, anybody. And you will have the satisfaction then of having helped us in terms of providing care for the uninsured, the working poor, people who are really having trouble struggling to take care of their families, but really want to see their children and themselves grow up as healthy individuals.
One of the pressing needs of our society today. So certainly a worthy cause. I'm going to repeat that phone number for you. Ticket information for the big gala starring that great singer Lou Rawls, taking place at the Marriott Hotel, downtown Minneapolis on May 2nd. What day of the week is that? That's Saturday night, I suppose. Huh?
It's either a Friday or a Saturday night. I've forgotten. I'm just going to be there, though.
The 2nd of May, we want to remember, and the phone number, 337-4349 for ticket information, 337-4349. It was St. Mary's Hospital it was sold, and of course you had had the long association there. How did you feel about that sale?
Well, it was a very difficult sort of emotional experience for me to think of St. Mary's not being a Catholic hospital or a part of our Sisters of St. Joseph operations. But when I reflected intellectually on the fact that we really had very fine people managing our hospitals in Minnesota, and the quality of care was superior, medical community is top-notch, and that the real needs of people that were not being met were in the community and in the neighborhoods, I could kind of resolve that in terms of we are moving into a new era of taking care of people, and in a way going back to our roots in terms of taking care of people in their own neighborhoods, in their own communities, and providing care where the needs are the greatest today, which are not in our acute care facilities. And so I'm happy today that we have this wonderful experience of opening up these healthcare clinics and being able to serve again people who are really in need.
Well, again, emphasizing the role of the church in all of this, the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, the many church folks and congregations that are deeply involved. Tell us about the clergy who participated in the opening of the first 2 healthcare clinics.
We've had wonderful participation from the church and from the clergy. Bishop Sharon was at the opening of our Northside Child Development Center. He blessed that facility. He blessed the new ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph. Archbishop Roach was at our March opening of the Women and Children's Center Clinic. And we've had several priests very, very interested in what we're doing. One of them even gave us a car so that we'd have transportation for our staff and for our volunteers and for our supplies and any other need we have. So we've had wonderful participation from the church, and equally wonderful participation from our lay communities in terms of volunteering for physician positions, nurse positions, receptionist positions, and anybody out there that would like to volunteer, we'd be happy to have them also let us know that.
And they could call that same phone number.
They call the same number, they'll get it to us.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned the role of the volunteers. If you want to expand on that a little bit, what are some of the specific things your volunteers do?
Well, we couldn't right now run our clinics if it weren't for volunteers. We have doctors covering the medical services of the clinics. We have nurses doing the regular nursing practice kinds of activities, and we have non-professional people or non-nurse medical people doing the reception work. We have a very small staff. We just have one nurse who does the orientation of the professional staff. We have a non-nurse who does the orientation of the non-professional staff, and an administrative type individual, and myself. And if it weren't for these volunteers coming into these clinics, we wouldn't be able to staff them and move as fast as we have.
Well, it certainly is a commendable operation involving so many people from so many different backgrounds, and a real asset to our community. So I congratulate you, Sister, and wish you great success now as you're looking forward to the establishment of 2 more of these health clinics for the poor in our Twin Cities area during this year of 1992. It's a marvelous plan, and it comes at a time when health care is desperately needed on the part of all of us, but especially the poor.
And now that, and after we get these 4, we're going to do a very careful evaluation, because we hope over the next 3 years to have approximately 20 of these in some kind of network in the metropolitan area. And so the continuing interest of the foundation, the continuing interest of people volunteering are really what's going to make them successful. Not what any one of us as a Sister of St. Joseph, but as all of us as sisters and lay people and clergy and whatever do to help us move these clinics forward in the interests of serving the poor and people who really want to improve their situations. I'm convinced of that as I've worked with these people so far.
Well, it's certainly a noble cause, and we wish you great success, continued success. And once again, I want to mention that gala coming up on May 2nd. And Lou Rawls is going to perform, and all proceeds from that go to developing this wonderful healthcare clinic for the poor program, which is so desperately needed. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Sister.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And once again, reminding you, our guest has been Sister Mary Madonna Ashton, who is President and Chief Executive Officer of the Carondelet Life Care Ministries. My thanks. That completes this edition of Sunday Morning. We thank you for being with us. We are here every Sunday morning between 6 and 7 a.m. on Channel 4. If that's not a convenient time for you to watch, and if you do have access to videotape recording equipment, I hope you might consider recording the show as many of our friends do. This is John Gallos, hoping you'll join us again next Sunday morning at the same time, and we'll see you then.
John Gallos hosts your Sunday morning show every week at this time, presented as a public service by WCCO Television in cooperation with the Minnesota Council of Churches, the St. Paul Minneapolis Archdiocese, and the National Conference of Christians and Jews.